not a spanner in the works, but the other sort of spin on it is what sort of size work you chase after. So it's one client that pays you 10 grand or, 10 clients that pay you $1,000. Which one requires more work? Which one can you get in quicker? And what are the upsell possibilities on each client? So say if you got a £50 a month upsell on each and every client, then by the time you've multiplied it, it doesn't take long to do the maths that chasing after 10 clients is far better than one big client. And you keep things going, you keep things moving. And especially if you're building a team, then they've always got work. And that's the point. It's you want that in developing that. So you've got those two sides of it, but you've got to get your message right. I think that's the biggest thing. And you've got to speak to people on an individual level on the difference you're going to make to them. Nobody cares about product. Nobody cares. They care about what difference it's going to make to them. And I think that's where so many people and companies do fall down.
100%. I mean, you bang on the money there in terms of, if you'll excuse the pun, of like the relationship between the front end product and the back end product. And so many people, we made this mistake in our business, in the marketing business when we first started out, that we were going after all the big projects because that's what our mentor told us to do. He said that's where the money's at. But if we stopped, I call it the sales cycle of doom. You end up doing sell, deliver, sell, deliver, sell, deliver, sell, deliver. And then like you go away on holiday or you get ill or whatever, and you have a break, stop selling, stop delivering, stop earning money. Then you take a deep breath and it all starts all over again. So you're just going around in this constant cycle, sales cycle of doom, basically. I don't think going around in circles is my definition of success, that's for sure. When we actually started to look at what we were selling on the back end in terms of the website and support, like support and care plans, all of a sudden our world opened up and we were more expensive than everybody else in our local area for web hosting. We could afford to have far fewer clients who were coming onto those programs. They loved and valued what we were doing. We were able to deliver, like stack more value into that back end because we were more expensive. That was a big shift for us. That we made that decision in the 2008-2009 recession to 5x the price of our care plans. When everybody else was that race to the bottom to be the cheapest to get clients because they thought that's what you had to do, I was just like, let's do completely the opposite. Let's be the most expensive in the market and see what happens. And immediately we lost 40% of our clients. Most people would panic at that. But actually what happened was our support calls dropped by 80% because 40% of the clients who left were actually our biggest pains in the arse. Yeah. Like they wanted the moon on a stick for nothing, basically. So they leave. We now get back a load of time in support wise, but our revenues went up 2.5 times. We've got 40% fewer clients, 80% fewer support calls, and 2.5 times more revenue. And we could step off at that point. We could take our foot off the gas in terms of that sales cycle of doom. We could wait for the right clients to come along. And then actually, naturally, what started to happen was we could actually, that £1,000 price point you kind of talked about, we started to just gradually increment that because there was no, like, we didn't have to go out hunting for clients all the time. So you get to experiment and have a little bit more fun. And it's one of those things in business, the one thing that, call it the fear monkey that sat on your shoulder. When you've got no money in the bank, the fear monkey is like, he's just chattering away. He's like, where's your next client coming from? Have you done the marketing? Have you done the pitch, the proposal that you're supposed to do? Have you followed up with and you got this, and you're lying awake at night and you're like, damn, well, this bloody fear monkey just bugger off. It's just getting annoying now. On the flip side of that, if you had 50 grand in your business bank account, would any of that stuff matter? No, you'd be chilled. The next client will come when the next client comes along. You'd be like totally sort of zen, not have to worry about having where the next client's going to come from. Like one of the things we work on in Fearless Business is where there are things which create fear, i.e. scarcity, lack of money, things like that, build up 3 to 6 months worth of like operating overhead. So worst case scenario, something like COVID comes, a big global event happens, or something happens to you personally. Like you don't have that immediate panic of what am I going to do about my income? It's there. It's 6 months worth of your mortgage payments are sat in the bank. So don't worry about it. What that does is it means that your decision-making processes change. You make very calm and calculated decisions rather than knee-jerk reactions. And if you're coming from a place of fear, you do end up making poor decisions. Your judgment is swayed by that chattering monkey that's going on over your shoulder.
There's nothing wrong with throwing in the whole point of energy as well. You walking around negative, desperate, they say about animals, they sense fear. So do prospects. Your prospects can tell when you are desperate for work, or they can tell when you're in just a bad mental space and they're just thinking, why do I want to waste my time with this person? Positivity breeds positivity. It's really, really simple. And it's how you put yourself out there. We don't always feel great. We don't always feel switched on, and we're going into 2021 with uncertainty like crazy, not knowing when we're going to get back to a new normal and what the hell that's going to be. You've got to put out this positive feel, this positive vibe, because otherwise everyone's just going to be like, why do I care about what you're doing? And why should I pay attention to what you're putting out there?
It's really interesting you should raise that, actually. I went to an event down in London at the old York Hall, which is an old boxing hall, 3 or 4 years ago now, and Gary Vaynerchuk was speaking there. He did an amazing keynote, really inspiring, and I had the opportunity to ask a question. I just said to him, listen, Gary, like, you do so much, you travel around the world, you've got VaynerMedia, you've got all of the, like, so much going on. How do you sustain that, like, energy wise? What's the secret? Because I'd love to know. And I remember him saying, he said, when I get up on stage, when I'm in front of the camera, he said, I'm a 10% exaggerated version of myself. Okay. He said, when I'm behind closed doors and back home with the kids and the wife and stuff like that, I'm just chilled, I relax, I rest, I recuperate, you know, and everything else. He said, you've just got to bring a little bit extra to the party when you're out in public. And he said, that's not like being somebody who you're not. It's just the person who you are and a little bit more. And that really like transformed the way that I kind of now behave. Again, a lot of people put pressure on themselves. They have to show up and like be a mega, like all the time, show up all the time as a dad, as a husband, as a business coach, as a networker, as a podcast guest or whatever. Reality is though, like, give yourself a bit of a break from time to time. Best moments now of my day are when I'm just like, I've got nothing on and I'm feeling a bit sort of low on energy, and I'll just go and hide under the duvet with Netflix for a couple of hours, like hide away from the world. And I'm not ashamed to admit that, but it re-energizes you and means that you can give little bit more back when you're called on to do it. And I think most people are just too switched on all of the time, and it can be massively draining. That's why you see the true entrepreneurs know how to get that balance right. There's never such a thing as like work-life balance. It is just about balance and knowing when to put your all in and knowing when to stop. And I think the business owners that struggle with this and don't ultimately last are the ones who push, even when the momentum's not going their way. They just don't know when to stop. One of the things, like a really clear and obvious one, I know, be remiss not to kind of give a nod to COVID, but so many people, fixed mindset, said, I can't do Zoom sessions. It's just not the same as face-to-face. Damn straight it's not the same, but what could you do to give it a similar sort of energy, a similar sort of experience? How could you make it better so that it's different, but they come away still feeling amazing afterwards? You know, simple things like, I recognized, you know, sounds really dumb, my background wasn't like this pre-lockdown, right? It was boring white walls with a couple of IKEA white shelves on it, and I've been online for ages, and that was just what I had at the time. COVID hit, now everybody's getting online, and now I'm paying attention to what they've got in their backgrounds and their branding, their energy levels and things like that, their lighting, their camera. Have they actually put time into this? Do they care about it? Because Zoom is like the one thing now which is happening as a result of lockdown. And so all I did, I was like, right, I'm just gonna have to put my all into this. My wife and I painted the wall, I built the shelves behind me, put some fancy lights up there and things like that. And next thing you know, everybody's commenting, oh my God, your background's amazing, Robin, this is brilliant. And I'm like, yeah. Yeah,
and that's the point, isn't it? It is experience, and it's how you come across. And I think if people see that you've made an effort, they're going to actually sit up and pay attention when you're talking. That's the point. And you don't have to go out and spend a fortune on, you know, fancy camera setup or anything. You know, I've got a crazy setup. That's because I'd got it like years ago for when I'm doing presentations and things. But you just need to pay some attention. Just make an effort, and little things can make the world of difference. You got to think that your perfect client could be in front of you at any point that they're seeing you. And if they're seeing you with the washing behind you, what's that say about you? And what's it say about how much you care about your business? And, you know, perception's everything. And it's that classic thing that's always said in business circles. How you behave with anything is how you behave and react with everything. So if you're putting a half-assed effort into your Zoom presence, what are you going to be like as a client or, you know, as a supplier? When are you going to drop the ball and put that same amount of effort in? You know, carry it every time, bring that energy, and let people know that there's something there to pay attention to.